And so notice, some people say that the Sabbath was made for the Jews, right? But what did Jesus say? Here in Mark chapter 2, verse 27, he said the Sabbath was made for who, everybody? For man, and not man for the Sabbath. Jesus said he made the Sabbath for man. He made it for you and I. He made it as a blessing. He made it and he sanctified it. He set it apart because he wants to spend that special time with us, friends. He wants to spend that special time with us. He goes on to say, therefore, the Son of Man is Lord also of what? Of the Sabbath. And so, friends, tonight we said, where did God write his law? In the stone. He wrote his law in the stone. Notice here in Exodus chapter 20, verse 8. It says, remember, this is the Sabbath commandment, by the way. It says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Now, what most people don't realize is that God gave the Sabbath there in the beginning of Genesis, right? And then when the Israelites left Egypt, Moses received the Ten Commandments. And when God brought the Ten Commandments to him, he started the fourth commandment with the word what, everybody? Isn't it interesting that God says, remember, and the whole world has forgotten? It's the only commandment that starts with the word remember, and yet the whole world has forgotten. Do you think there's some significance in that? And the other thing is, God was reminding the Israelites, remember, you had this before you went to Egypt. It was part of the original commandments that God had made for Adam and Eve to keep the Sabbath day holy. And so he said, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. And then he goes on to say, in it thou shalt not do any work. Thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. So anybody that was connected with you should not be working on the seventh day. Because God gave us how many days to work, everybody? 6. Do you think that's fair of God? He gives us 6 days to work and he says, I just want you to keep this day holy. 1 day out of 7. You think that's unfair for God to ask? And do you know that God wants it to be a blessing for you, friends? It's been a blessing in my life ever since I've learned about it. Notice what it goes on to say. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, and the sea and all that in them is, and he rested the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day, and he hallowed it. So God is the one that made the Sabbath day. You know, Jesus is the one who created everything. Jesus was the one that rested from all his creation on the Sabbath day, and he blessed the Sabbath day. Jesus hallowed the Sabbath and said what, everybody? He said to remember. He said to remember the Sabbath. Jesus wanted a special day to fellowship with his people. And so why is it so important to God tonight to remember to keep the Sabbath day holy? Notice here in Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 12, God tells us, moreover, I also gave them my what? My Sabbaths to be a what? A sign between them and me, that they might know that I am the Lord who does what? Sanctifies them. That word sanctify means to set apart for a holy use. Do you know that God wants to set you and I apart for a holy use? Do you believe that tonight? And he said that the Sabbath is a sign that we are connected with God. You know, notice here again, here in Ezekiel 20:20, he says, hallow my what? Sabbaths, and they will be a sign between me and you, that you may know that I am the Lord your God. Today, there's many memorials that are set up, isn't that right? The Sabbath is a sign between God and his people. It's a sign. That word sign in the Bible means God's distinguishing mark. Isn't that interesting? God's distinguishing mark. Now, you remember during 9/11, the buildings came down. And now that place is a memorial. Why did they set that place up as a memorial? Can anybody tell me? To remember, so that nobody would forget, right, what took place. God says the Sabbath is a memorial that we would not forget that he's our creator God. Do you realize that? That's what it says. There goes my microphone. God is good. Just give me a second, friends.